denominator, because I am God and country. You are God and country. You are family. I am family. And some of you I've met very closely. And Albert, I want to thank you for welcoming me into your home, into your life, your beautiful wife, your children. And when I sat down with you in your family room, and your wife said, "Is there anything I can get you, Bob? Is there anything I can serve you?" And I said, "I'm home." And I thank you. What a wonderful feeling. But that is the same feeling that anyone gets and receives when they walk into an Armenian home. Because you open your heart, you open your doors, and you'd say, "How can we help you? How can we join together? How can we be one and the same?" And it's very simple, because if we honor this flag that so many of us serve, it is amazing. So many of us have served, whether you heard in law enforcement or in the military. And yes, I served in the military. I'm a combat veteran. I served with the 82nd Airborne. It's a paratrooper unit. I used to jump out of airplanes. Is that crazy or what? It is crazy. But you know what? They paid me $50 more. And for $50, I'll jump again. So that's why I did it. And of course, I instilled that in my sons. As Albert, you've instilled into your sons. And every one of you have instilled in your families the love of God and country and the commitment to serve. And that is so very important. This feeling that the job is not done, not with one generation, not with two generations, it's going to continue. The job must continue to serve and represent this country, to let everyone know that you are Americans, and we together are going to give an example of how we should lead, how we should instill into everyone what God and country really means, to be able to educate our children. And I will tell you that, Albert, you mentioned it, that over time, how do you raise 5 children and get them through soccer, get them through Little League, get them to school? God knows how it is. But I've got 5 of them. My oldest son played for UFC on the football team. That was his dream. He said, "Dad, I want to grow up and play football for UFC." And you imagine your son telling you that? "I want to play football for UFC." Where do we start? We start with the fundamentals that all of you have. You teach, you guide, you train, you prepare, you make them study, you get them in shape, and you get them to the right schools with the right teachers and the right coaches. And one day they wake up and they say, "I just got admitted to UFC and I made the football team." That was his dream, and we did it. Can you imagine? So he has a beautiful Rose Bowl ring, and he's very proud to say that he played football for UFC. And then my daughter, I have a daughter who went to Pepperdine, and we took a ride up to Pepperdine, up in Santa Monica, up in the hills, and what a beautiful area. Pepperdine's a beautiful school. "I want to go there, Dad. That's where I want to go." Well, let's prepare you. The same thing that you would all do. Then the other one said, "I want to do social work. I want to help people. And I want to go to Chapman College, because Chapman College has a good program for social work." Am I right? Social work. You want to be a social worker? Chapman College is the school to go to. So sure enough, that was her dream. Then I have 2 more sons, and one of them was very little, about 7 or 8 years old. This is Brandon. And I asked, "What do you want to do, my son?" "Well, I want to be president of the United States." Whoa. Now, how do I prepare him for that? So I said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and send you to West Point. Stand up, young lady. Right now, on your feet. There is a West Point graduate right here. United States Army. Hoorah." And thank you for converting your dad to go Army, beat Navy. Anyway, so I told my son, "If you want to be the President of the United States, then you better go to West Point." So let's prepare him. My wife and I, we started preparing him. The right tutors, the right trainers, the right everything. So we had to send him to the right school and the right high school so he could get prepared to go to West Point. He got admitted, he got in, and became president of West Point. So when he graduated, imagine, and he became president of the United States, president of West Point. And when he graduated, I'm jumping ahead, when he graduated, the president of the United States actually handed him his diploma. the President of the United States handed him his diploma. Well, 4 years later, my youngest son, well, he wants to go to West Point. So again, we did it again, and he got in, and he graduated from West Point as vice president. So in America, we have one family with a president and a vice president. It's the Archulettas, a president and vice president from West Point. Is that difficult?
Yes.
I think so. But we did it. We did it for the same values that you all have. Love of God and country. Believe in family. And believe in your children that they can do anything they want. And Albert, you know it. Because I always brag about Albert having a doctor and a lawyer in the same family. Oh my God, how did you do that? Thanks, Mom. I know you did a great job. I don't know about you, Albert, but thanks, Mom, for doing a great job. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a little bit about my life. But let me turn the clock back. When I was a young man, I knew that I was blessed to have family. And the one family I had, one, was my grandmother. Because my grandmother was the one who received me as an infant. And I'm going to tell you this story. Because in the Armenian community, when the genocide was going on, and years back, how many grandmothers and mothers were able to take the children for freedom and safety and raise them as their own. Well, here's what happened. When I was born, my mother took me to my grandmother and said, "Here, he's yours. You can have him. I don't want him." My grandmother says, "If you leave him, don't ever turn back, because he is mine. I will raise him. And I will raise him to believe in God, and I'll raise him to understand that whatever food we have on the table is a gift from God. So you go ahead and go, but don't come back." And she never did. So my grandmother raised me. We were in South Central LA, 65 years old, little old lady, just me and her. And we prayed every night. And I remember saying the Pledge of Allegiance when I was very, very young. And I remember the love that she gave me. It instilled my personality to understand that if you treat people with love and kindness, if you treat people with this sense of really believing in your heart that you're there to help, it'll come back. And I did that. Then when I was 10 years old, tragedy hit. She died. She died in my arms. And I said, "Where do I go now?" The funeral took place, and I said, "Where do I go?" I said, "You're going to go with me. You're going to go over here." So 3 months over there, 2 months over there, 4 months over there. Next thing I knew, and I lived in South Central, I lived in projects. God knows where I lived during that year. And finally they took me back to Lincoln Heights, near Chinatown. And there, the door knock came in and said, the lady opened the door, and it was my birth mother. She goes, "I'm your mother, come in here." I said, "No." And I took off running and on the streets on the way to Chinatown, knowing that I had no money, it got cold, I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I shouldn't be there. But I had to go back, I had nowhere else to go. Then it started with a very tough time with my mother. So I ran away every day, in grammar school, in junior high school. I was running away every time I had a shot. So finally, when I was a little older, I had to fend for myself, so I started selling flowers on the corners. And I sold more flowers than anybody. I was selling flowers left and right because I knew if I did, then I could dress myself and I would still be able to go back and say, "Here, even though we don't get along, but here's a little bit for the rent." I did that because I knew my grandmother would be proud if I did that. So I kept running away every chance I had. Even in high school, LAPD, Bob, LAPD came knocking on the door to high school. "Where's Bob Archuletta? Where's Bobby Archuletta?" And the priest said, "I don't know. I don't know where he's at." He was hiding underneath the desk. That's where he was. That's where I was. Anyway, but that was my life. And I knew that it would have to be a better life. Like all of you, like your ancestors. A better life here in America. A better life for your family. And I knew that one day, if God gave me the blessing of having a family, I would educate them, I would take care of them, and I would make sure that they would grow up. Maybe one day to be doctors and lawyers, but maybe one day to serve this great country. But whatever it is they were doing, I knew they were God's gift. And that's what I think makes me a little bit special, because I know how to love my fellow man, and I know how to love a family. And God has blessed me. And this calling that I have to serve, I am going to continue it. I've been the mayor of Pico Rivera, and when I took over Pico Rivera, which is the Los Robian School, you know where that is, and they couldn't use a playground, they needed a lot of stuff, and I worked with the principal, and we helped them. We did that. And I turned the city around as mayor. We built libraries, we built the parks, we cleaned up everything, no more graffiti, named the #1 most improved city in the county of LA, the most business-friendly city in the county of LA. We did a lot in Pico Rivera. And Grace Napolitano, the congresswoman, said, Bob, I think you're ready to go on to the Senate. So she supported me for that. And now she's saying, Bob Archuletta, you got to keep going and run for Congress. Well, along that way, and I'll turn the clock back, I was honored to serve with the Montebello Police Department. I was honored to serve this nation. I was honored to be appointed by a president of the United States. And I worked for 2 presidents. Imagine that. 2 presidents. George W. Bush, I handled minority veterans affairs for him because I knew that he was a good man and I knew that he believed in God and country and he believed in veterans. And I said, I will work for you to go ahead and help my veterans. And then President Barack Obama asked me to jump in and work for him to oversee the United States Military Academy at West Point on the Board of Visitors. And I did that. So the calling, they keep knocking on my door, and I guess I keep saying yes. Remember, I volunteered to be a paratrooper for $50. Well, I'm volunteering to be a congressman for God knows, I don't care. I'm not looking at the dollars, I'm looking at the service and the opportunity to be able to take your message, your voice to Congress, because people need to know about the Armenian community. They need to know about your love of God and country. They need to know of the service you've given us. And with that, yes, I'm a California State Senator. Yes, I am the chair of the Military and Veterans Committee. I'm on the Governor's Council that oversees 31 military bases in California. I get to travel all over the state to honor the troops and talk to our military. And also I'm the chair of the Hydrogen Committee because I'm looking about energy and saving our environment. So there's a lot of things I've been able to do, but I'm just getting started. I hit that ceiling and I got to break through it, and that's why I was in Congress. And I'm going that way. I was in Washington this whole week, walking the halls, talking to other congressmen, and being with Congresswoman Grace Napolitano. I am ready for the task. I thank you for your support, and I will tell you this, we're not alone. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands of us that want to take your voice, and we've got to find them. And that's what we're going to do together. We are going to get people to know that when they come to Montebello and they see that monument, because I've pledged that we're going to make that a historical site. And I told everybody, I told the city council, I told my staff in Sacramento, we are going to make that monument, the Armenian monument, a historical site. It'll be the only one that I'm aware of, but it's going to be something we're going to do together. So I leave you with this. Thank you for honoring the PAC, because it is the PAC that's going to make the difference in your lives. It is the PAC that's going to be able to know who to support and who not to support. And I thank you for being here to honor Albert and his family and the members of the PAC. Congratulations. Before we sign off, Albert, I would like to ask you to stand up with your members of the PAC. Can they stand up to be recognized? Come on, guys. These are members of the PAC. There we go. Come on. There we are. Come on. Thank you so very much. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for loving God and country. And please remember, I am your Senator, Bob Archuletta. God willing, I'll be your congressman. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Now everyone knows a little bit